The story starts in a magical realm where 9 races share the same world: elves, demon kin, dark elves, dwarves, beast folk, oni folk, centaurs, dragonutes, and finally humans, and one of whom is a young adventurer named Light. Wanting to pull his family out of poverty, Light bids farewell to his hometown and sets out on a journey in search of wealth and strength. When he finally reaches the grand city, he's hit with the harsh reality of discrimination as people sneer at him just for being human. Still determined, he walks into the guild to register as an adventurer and is assigned an F rank since it's his first day. The receptionist asks if he has a special skill, and Light's face lights up as he proudly says yes, it's something called unlimited gokcha. Curious, the girl asks him to explain it since she's never heard of such a thing before, but Light insists it'll be easier to show her in action. He pulls out his gokcha device and presses it, creating a card right before her eyes. Beaming with pride, Light explains that whatever's on the card can be summoned. But his excitement dies fast when he realizes the first card's just a damn bent fork. Embarrassed, he laughs it off, saying it's just a failure, and tries again. But instead of something useful, out pops even more worthless crap like a rotten apple and a piece of moldy bread. He insists it doesn't usually suck this bad, but she's already over it and just hands him his F-rank card without another word. So fired up, Light rushes to take his first quest. The receptionist points him toward the bulletin board, but the problem is that he can't read. In this world, that's not unusual since most humans barely know their letters. Thankfully, she helps him out and picks a few beginner jobs for him. They're all low-paying, but Light doesn't care because he's ready to work his ass off. And by the end of the day, he's completely drained. He's done several jobs back-to-back, and all that effort barely got him enough for a single night at an inn. Still, he tries to stay positive, saying that if his gokcha can spit out something edible, he'll manage just fine. Then out of nowhere, a group of beast folk thugs bump into him and start yelling like it's his fault for dirtying their clothes. Before he can explain, they snatch every coin he has, claiming it'll cover the laundry bill. Light pleads for them to give it back because without it, he won't even have a bed for the night. But they don't give a shit. One of them kicks him to the ground, telling him to go sleep in a pigsty, and they walk off laughing. The people around don't even lift a finger to help. Instead, they sneer and call him nothing more than worthless human garbage. Right then, a young woman lifts him up, yet Light notices she's an elf and he's taken aback. He frantically apologizes for making contact with her, but the woman reassures Light that she will not harm him. Light cannot grasp why an elf would show kindness to a human like him, and the woman even embraces him. Spectators are appalled to witness an elf merely touch a human, and Light is completely stunned. This elf girl soiled her knees just to hold him, so he questions if he's dreaming. The woman assures him that he's not, and the rest of her companions introduce themselves. They state that they are members of the Concord of Tribes. It's the title of their group that represents all 9 races created by the divinity. The beast folk names himself Garu, and the elf is Sasha. There is also Diablo the demon kin, Oboro the Omi folk, and Drago the dragonute. Then comes Nano the dwarf, Xian the dark elf, and Santoru the centaur. That makes 8 members, so the party reveals that all they need now is a human to complete the set. Light is left speechless, so they clarify that their aim as a group is an honorable one. They want to wipe out racism in the world and build a future where every race stands on equal ground. And they want him to be part of it, but Light cannot believe what he's hearing. So the group's leader steps forward and promises that they mean every word. And just like that, Light agrees to join them, heart full and eyes shining. Sometime later, Light finds himself under attack by enormous serpents, and he has to be saved by Drago. Another creature almost creeps up on him, but Sasha is there to kill it. She cautions Light to be more cautious and reminds him that they're in the largest and harshest dungeon in the world called the Abyss. If anything strikes him here, he will bite the dust immediately. Light apologizes, so Sasha explains that she's simply worried about him, and she examines him to ensure he isn't hurt. They've been traveling together for a while now, and the rest of the group starts teasing Sasha, calling her out for always babying him. They joke that she just can't help herself, that the second she's near Light, her face turns red and all her tough talk melts away. Sasha tries to say that she only does not want their group's reputation damaged by losing a member, but the others are not convinced. Light is feeling quite useless at this point, but Drywood tells him not to be concerned. He says that he enjoys the tea that Light prepares for them, so he's already contributing enough. Light feels relieved hearing this, and the group continues their journey through the Abyss. They reach an area with only a single way out, and Drago decides that this is the ideal place. Light thinks that it must be time for a rest, so he cheerfully tells everyone that he will prepare his well-known tea for them to enjoy. He says that it will just take a moment, but Drago immediately cuts him off and announces that Light is expelled from the party. Light cannot speak, so Drago repeats himself. Light remains completely confused, so Garu simply tells him that he's being thrown out of the group. Everyone's attitude has completely shifted as they all become harsh, and Garu says that he's worthless to them now. Even Sasha calls him a foolish child and says that he always irritated her. They even wonder aloud if his incompetence comes from the lack of brain cells or if it's simply a human trait. They all drop their act and reveal that they despise human trash like him. Light desperately hopes that it's a joke, but they tell him that they didn't come all the way into the abyss for some prank. Light points out that they were all so kind to him before, but they admit that it was all fake as they needed him in their group. It makes no sense to him, so Drago explains that the entire setup was because of Light's ability. This only confuses Light more because his unlimited Gocha has always seemed worthless. Drago says that their leaders have been monitoring Light because of his odd ability, suspecting that he might be something called a maestro. The only reason they brought him into the Conqueror tribes was to watch him closely. Light argues that his unlimited Gocha is a useless ability because it only produces piles of junk, but that does not matter to them. They already know his power is worthless and his stats are even worse. That is why the leaders have decided that Light is not the maestro, which means he's nothing but dead weight now. The others wish the higher-ups had decided sooner because they hated pretending to like him all this time. Light knows nothing about these leaders or the maestro, but Drago says he's heard enough. It won't matter anyway as Drago declares that it's time to finish the damn job. Horror crashes over Light as he realizes he's not just being thrown out of the party because finishing the job means they're going to finish his ass off. That's when it begins and Garou lunges forward, slicing across Light's face. His whole frame trembles as the brutal truth sinks in and he bolts in panic. But escape isn't an option as the group tells him there's no way out. He couldn't survive even a single beast in the abyss, so they tell him to just accept his fate. Sasha makes it clear there won't be a chance to run, firing an arrow that pierces through his damn leg. Garou admits how much pleasure he gets from hunting humans and Xian agrees, saying their freaking screams are like a sweet melody to her. Garou doesn't stop there and he kicks the shit out of Light. Drago tells him to cut it off, but Garou is eager to keep going, so Sasha reminds him they have to stick to the script. Their excuse is going to be that a monster from the abyss killed Light, so they can't leave behind wounds that say otherwise. Garou steps up to deliver the final blow, telling Light he's been a fun target to beat on, so the end won't be quick. Light crawls desperately across the ground, questioning how it all came to this shit. His hopelessness explodes and he shouts that he doesn't want to die, accidentally activating a teleport trap. Drago yells at Garou not to let the damn rats slip away, but it's already too late. A few seconds later, Light finds himself elsewhere in the dungeon, but the change in scenery brings no comfort. His injuries are severe. He knows the moment one of the creatures here finds him, he's done. All he can think about is his family, wondering what led to this. The others had treated him kindly, and he thought they were becoming like comrades after everything they'd shared. But reality is cruel, and the friendship was fake, and they took joy in breaking him. They were thrilled at the thought of watching him die, and they planned to do it with smirks on their faces. Light's heartbreak quickly burns into fury, and he now despises every single one of them, so he promises to wipe them out. That fury lights a fire in him, and his thirst for vengeance refuses to let him fall here. He swears they'll pay, and he'll tear them all to pieces and take his sweet revenge. But things only get worse as a creature shows up, and Light's eyes go wide as he sees its level 1000. That shouldn't exist because beasts like that belong in myths. That's when Light realizes the terrifying truth that he's been warped to the very bottom of the abyss itself. There's no freaking chance of escape as the monster closes in, but Light refuses to perish before claiming his vengeance. All Light has to even attempt to resist is his unlimited Gocha, so he activates it. Light triggers his unlimited Gocha again and again, silently begging for a miracle. He will not surrender because he must destroy those who betrayed him at any price and return to the family he treasures. And by fortune, Light's persistence succeeds and his Gocha blazes with dazzling brilliance like never before. The monster strikes, but it's already too late as Light's Gocha produces a new card. A voice proclaims that nothing shall harm its master, and a maiden manifests, completely obliterating the level 1000 creature. This mighty girl clears the wreckage she caused and astonishingly kneels before Light. She heals him and quickly apologizes for doing so without asking his permission first, saying it would be shameful if his handsome features and fair pearl skin were marred by such dreadful injuries. Light is amazed to hear her speak this way about him, and even more shocked to realize that she has healed every wound. The girl asks him to grace her with his name and his fine voice, so Light tells her who he is. The girl calls him Master Light and announces that she will devote her existence to serving him. It is the maid's oath of honor, and she vows her total loyalty to him without hesitation. Naturally, Light wants to know who this mysterious girl is, so she introduces herself as Mei, the ever-seeking maid, and her level is 9999. What stuns Light most isn't her power, it's that she's a super ultra rare card pulled from his supposedly useless unlimited Gocha. But Mei goes on and on about her undying devotion, even saying she would follow him beyond death itself. Still overwhelmed, Light tries to explain that his unlimited Gocha isn't anything special. There's just no way someone like her could have been summoned from such a useless skill. Mai kindly asks permission to inspect his Goksha using her appraisal ability, saying she'll only do so with his consent because it's the proper way for a servant to act, and Light agrees. As soon as she examines it, Mai is amazed. She reveals that Light's abilities are buried beneath a powerful concealment barrier known as Conceal, and no one below her level would ever be able to uncover it. Then she tells him that his unlimited Goksha is anything but trash. It allows for infinite draws, and the quality and rarity of what it produces depend on the mana levels in the surrounding area. She lists the rarity tiers from highest to lowest: extra, super ultra rare, triple S rare, double S rare, rare, normal, and at the bottom, error. Light doesn't fully understand the part about mana, so Mai breaks it down for him. She explains that mana is an invisible force that flows through everything in the world, but its concentration is weakest near the surface, which means the odds of pulling a super ultra rare like Mai up there are practically non-existent. But things are different down in this place. Right now, they're in the very depths of the dungeon, and the mana here is thick in the air. That means Light's chances of drawing rare cards improve dramatically at this depth. Mai has no idea what led him here, but she praises his courage for venturing this far below just to unlock the full strength of his unlimited Gaksha. Light, however, refuses to pretend he's some kind of hero. He admits that he would have never made it this far on his own. He explains how his old allies turned on him, how they slashed him, beat the shit out of him, pierced him with an arrow, and left him for dead. As he speaks, the memories overwhelm him. Tears come, but so does the rage, and he swears that he won't rest until every single one of them pays the price. Without warning, Mai gently wraps her arms around him and apologizes for the torment he's endured. She assures him that now that he has her at his side, serving justice to those traitors will be effortless. She then begs Light to give her the order to hunt down the treacherous ones and bring back their heads on stakes as tribute. Light takes a step back, not giving an answer, so Mai assumes it's because he has too much compassion in his heart and tells him his enemies are beneath mercy. But Light replies that's not the issue. He trusted them and got tricked. He was beaten nearly to death and thrown to the bottom of this cursed place. And the real problem wasn't them, it was his own weakness, and that's why he's decided that he must grow stronger. He admits it might be impossible for a weak human like him, but he desires vengeance by his own hand. He then wonders aloud if Mai thinks he's being foolish, but she says she would never think that of him. Instead, she declares that his desire is hers, and if his goal is personal vengeance, then it's her duty to see it through. She says that she believes in what he can become more than anything in the world, so Light thanks her for her unwavering loyalty. With their resolve now aligned, Light rolls his unlimited Goksha once more in the depths of the abyss, vowing to master his ability to build a kingdom powerful enough to clear the way toward his vengeance. 3 years later, we find that Light has established a massive empire deep within the abyss itself. Standing before his gathered maids, he praises them for their efforts, telling them they all did great work today. They respond in unison, thanking their beloved Master Light. Every single one of them is completely infatuated with him, whispering to each other that they must have spent all their life's luck just to be near him. One overly enthusiastic maid even goes as far as to wish she could get a sniff of his feet. Their obsession quickly gets out of hand, and Mai, clearly irritated, asks Light for permission to discipline them. But Light waves her off with a smile, saying it's fine or simply devoted to him, and he lets their behavior slide. Then we see the true scale of Light's empire, vast cities filled with bustling shops and countless citizens leading peaceful lives. Wherever he walks, people greet him warmly, calling out to Master Light and offering him their finest dishes. Even those who are running low on supplies approach him without fear, knowing their leader is kind and fair. Light reassures them that he'll alert the administration to fix any shortages, and Mai immediately takes charge, insisting on resolving every issue at once to ensure no one doubts the empire's stability. Light observes that the population has grown enormously over the past 3 years, and he realizes he might need to overhaul the entire governing structure soon. His next concern is the status of his elite warriors, each one is summoned from level 99 super ultra rare cards. Mai reports that they're all currently out on missions. Oyuki, for instance, is mapping the outer perimeter of the Abyss, a region crawling with dangerous creatures. But Light isn't worried because he's confident that a genius beast tamer like her can handle anything out there. Next is Ellie, who's been hard at work developing new forms of magic aligned with Light's grand vision. He knows he's given her a lot to handle and hopes she isn't pushing herself too hard to meet his expectations. Then there's Nazuna, who's patrolling the castle as usual. She specializes in close quarters combat, making her the ideal bodyguard. Mai admits Nazuna isn't exactly the sharpest mind in the group, but she's easily the most entertaining to be around. Back inside the castle, Mai grows annoyed to find someone waiting outside Light's chamber, and it's Jack, the level 77 warrior. Mai scolds him for being too casual and reminds him to show proper respect to Master Light. But Light dismisses her concern and tells her it's fine, and doesn't mind because he always thinks of him as his big brother. The two men step outside for some serious training, and Light warns that today there will be no holding back. He declares the gloves are off and immediately opens with a lightning-fast punch straight into Jack's stomach. Jack stumbles back, clearly impressed, but laughs it off because after all, there's a reason they call him the Iron-Blooded Barricade. Light's hit would have taken out nearly anyone else, but Jack is built like a fortress. As their sparring session heats up, we cut to Nazuna making her rounds through the castle. She proudly informs the other maids that she's carrying out a direct assignment from Master Light, a critical patrol mission. The maids shower her with praise, saying they feel safer knowing someone like her is watching over them. Nazuna tries to remain modest, saying she's just doing her duty, even if her posture says otherwise. Not sure where to head next, Nazuna listens as the maids nervously mention a certain restricted zone they'd like her to check out. Turns out that area is none other than Light's bedroom, leaving Mai puzzled about why Nazuna's knocking there. Nazuna says she's simply planning to inspect the room, but Mai calmly tells her that Light's quarters are already tightly secured. But Nazuna hits back by pointing out that Light isn't even home right now, and more suspiciously, wonders what Mai is doing inside. Mai quickly claims she's just keeping busy, as all diligent maids should be, but Nazuna shrugs and lets herself in. Once inside, Nazuna begins to observe the surroundings. Something seems off. The bed is clearly ruffled, as if someone had been flopping around on it. Even stranger, there are impressions on the pillows like someone was lying down, kicking their legs and sniffing. Mai doesn't flinch and calmly says this is part of her specialized bed-making technique. She claims it's a top-secret method not to be shared. Nazuna, completely convinced, gasps in admiration. She praises Mai's incredible skills and says she truly deserves her position as Light's first-ever summon. But Nazuna didn't come empty-handed. She also delivers a message from the other maids. They're fed up with Mai monopolizing access to Light's room. The note says the maids demand fair cleaning rights, and that a formal petition has already been launched to remove Mai as head maid. They accuse her of tyranny and sign off the letter with a sharp "get wrecked." Nazuna offers to help however she can, but Mai politely declines, saying it's her job to handle this uprising herself. She thanks Nazuna for relaying the message and even slips her a tip, which leaves Nazuna beaming with joy. Nazuna immediately rushes off to splurge her reward money at a local vendor that just restocked with a fresh batch of irresistible treats. She refuses to waste her coin on anything average because what her stomach truly craves are those glorious milk and pancake sandwiches. With no hesitation, she shoves the snacks into her mouth, completely lost in flavor heaven, and that's when she stumbles upon Oyuki inside the castle. Confused, Nazuna asks why Oyuki is back so soon because she was supposed to be exploring the forest perimeter of the abyss. As always, Oyuki replies in a series of cat-like meows. Unfortunately for her, Nazuna doesn't speak meow the way Light does. Ever confident in her own brilliance, Nazuna attempts to interpret her cryptic words, but her guesses miss the mark entirely. First, she asks if Oyuki needs help chopping down trees to clear the scouting path, but the answer is clearly no. Then she wonders if Oyuki might run into some kind of monster that was too tough to handle, but that's not it either. Nazuna eventually acknowledges that while Oyuki was summoned before her, she still looks older and stronger. So with full confidence, she tells Oyuki that if she's ever in trouble, she should feel free to rely on her. Tired of the guessing game, Oyuki finally drops the act and speaks normally, explaining that she completed the mission without any issues. She didn't encounter a single threat and came back simply to deliver her portion of the completed map. Back inside the castle, Nazuna finishes up her patrol with pride, though she's a little down that she hasn't seen Master Light all day. After making sure she's alone, she sneaks over and climbs onto Light's grand throne. She reflects on how effortlessly cool he looks whenever he sits there, and quietly wishes he were here now. But her fantasy is abruptly shattered when she accidentally snaps off a small piece of the throne's angel wing. In full panic mode, she slaps the broken part back on, hoping it stays, then bolts from the room in a full sprint. Meanwhile, out near the training grounds, Light and Jack are still exchanging blows, but eventually agree to wrap up for the day. While catching their breath, Jack comments that Light has practically mastered the art of turning his entire body into a weapon. A Light as humble as ever credits Jack for being a great teacher. The intense sessions have transformed Light into a powerhouse, and Jack admits that there are only a handful of beings in the Abyss that could even stand a chance against him now. The Abyss is home to the most fearsome creatures on the planet, meaning that if so few can rival Light down here, even fewer can challenge him on the surface. But Jack isn't saying this to brag. He's reminding Light of an important truth. Stronger foes still exist out there. Light takes the warning to heart, and he knows the surface world is full of unknown dangers, and he vows never to grow complacent. He'll survive no matter what it takes because his mission for vengeance still isn't over. In another room, Mai gathers the maids for a meeting, but they all pretend they have no idea why she summoned them. Mai calmly recites every word of the message they sent her, including the final "get wrecked" line. Instantly, the group starts apologizing all at once. None of them know what to say, so they scramble for excuses. One of them claims they were just trying to help because Maya is always so overworked, and the others chime in saying their intentions were good. But none of that explains the last part of their note, and worst of all, they had the nerve to send Nazuna to deliver it instead of facing Mai directly. Their so-called unity crumbles in seconds as they start blaming each other. But Mai shuts it down and she firmly rejects their request to be allowed inside Light's room. Instead, she assigns them a different task, cleaning the corridor that leads to the throne chamber. And just to drive the point home, she orders them to scrub it all manually, without magic or shortcuts. The hallway is ridiculously long and the maids groan that it'll take forever. But Mai doesn't budge, and she reminds them that she'll be heading to the surface soon on a special mission for Master Light, so she expects them to keep everything spotless while she's away. Meanwhile, in the market, Nazuna stares dreamily at a sleek-looking weapon on display, muttering that she wishes she could buy something that cool. Ellie suddenly shows up behind her, surprised to find her hanging around the shop. Thinking Nazuna's probably there for sweets again, she's surprised to hear that Nazuna's just admiring a pair of battle gloves. Nazuna thought Ellie would be off doing field work or overseeing repairs like usual, but Ellie casually says she's on break today, and everything's running so smoothly she actually has free time for once. Ellie suspects Nazuna's even more scatterbrained than usual, but Nazuna tries to prove her sharpness by proudly reciting multiplication facts, only to mess up right away. Ellie bursts out laughing, mocking her, and the two start bickering. Ellie smugly points out that Light trusts her with high-level tasks, crucial to his master plan for revenge, unlike Nazuna and her adorably tiny brain. Nazuna claps back, saying her patrols are important too, but Ellie waves it off as nothing special. Then Ellie reveals she just had tea with Light to discuss strategic matters. She taunts Nazuna, saying next time she might even reserve a private room for their meeting. Nazuna instantly gets jealous, not over the conversation, but the tea. She desperately wants to have tea with Light too. Ellie can't believe that's what upset her, but Nazuna just blinks confused because she doesn't see what else there is to be jealous about. So Ellie says there's something even more jealousy-worthy, something that should really light a fire on her. But Nazuna misreads the moment entirely, and she assumes Ellie's talking about magic and immediately offers her support, thinking Ellie might be worried about not being able to fight without spells one day, and she promises to protect her if that ever happens. Left speechless, Ellie just sighs and says sure, she'll take her up on it. Nazuna skips off, happy as ever, ready to resume her patrol. Ellie watches her go, thinking to herself that there really is no one else quite like Nazuna. Elsewhere in the castle, the four maids gripe about how they ended up in trouble despite having what they believe was a perfectly valid complaint about their supervisor. The problem is that she is the supervisor and Mai's practically untouchable. Powerless to act against her, they all sulk, dreaming about how nice it would have been to be the ones cleaning Master Light's room. The conversation quickly derails as one of them says she'd bury her entire face in his bedsheets just to catch his scent. As usual, the girl who always takes things too far goes way over the edge, saying she wants to lick every utensil he's ever used. The others immediately call her a freaking freak, but after a moment of hesitation, they all sheepishly admit they'd probably do the same. Their thoughts wander to Mai's seniority because after all, she was the very first one Light summoned. It wasn't until 3 months later that Oyuki appeared, and they can't stop imagining what might have happened between Light and Mai during that time, and their imaginations spiral out of control. Light is pure, innocent, and sometimes completely clueless, and the idea of a young boy and girl being alone together in a death trap of a dungeon makes them sick with envy. They feel so jealous, they wish they could channel that emotion into an actual curse to put on Mai. They try, but all freeze in horror when Mai suddenly appears behind them. They had all assumed she'd already left from her surface mission, but apparently not. Mai tells them she caught wind of them chanting "die" repeatedly and has come for an explanation. Instantly, the girls change their tone, pretending to be nothing but loyal underlings, but Mai isn't fooled in the slightest. Eventually, they confess, admitting their envy got the better of them. What they really resent is the fact that Mai got to spend so much one-on-one time with Light. Light tells them she has no obligation to share what happened during those 3 months, but since she's feeling charitable, she'll humor them. She reveals that during that time, Light didn't spend a single moment doing anything remotely romantic or questionable. He buried himself in study, devouring every book he could find and practicing martial arts non-stop because he was entirely consumed by his goal of growing stronger. As for all the depraved fantasies the maids cooked up, none of them came even remotely true. Mai admits that lately she'd been feeling like she might have been too strict, that maybe her leadership had been a little unreasonable. She was even considering lightening their workload. But now, after hearing what they were plotting, she realizes she was way too lenient. Not only will they be scrubbing the hallways by hand, but she's adding the throne room to their task list as well. The girls groan in despair, realizing that will take an eternity, but Mai coldly remarks that given how much time they spent badmouthing her, they clearly have plenty to spare. Her tone shifts from casual to commanding as she tells them to acknowledge the order immediately. The maids have no choice but to salute and get to work, grumbling as they go. But just as they begin cleaning, disaster strikes. The broken angel wing on Light's throne, previously reattached in a panic by Nizuna, snaps off and hits the floor. Inside her room, Nizuna stretches out with a sigh of relief, proud to have completed another day of keeping the peace. Still, there's a lingering disappointment in her chest because she didn't get to see Light at all. More than anything, she wishes he'd finally give her the order she's been waiting for. She wants to be sent to the surface so she can destroy everyone who dared to betray him. She eventually calmed down, hoping she could see him the next morning, and fell asleep with that wish in her heart. The following day, Light steps outside the castle and finds the usual scene, Ellie and Nizuna locked in another argument. Nizuna lights up the moment she spots him, thrilled that her wish came true and she gets to see Master Light again. As always, Light can't help but treat Oyuki like a cat, and the other girls quickly become jealous of the attention. But the peaceful moment is shattered when a familiar beast shows up, one that looks exactly like the hellhound Light first faced when he fell into the abyss. Even now, Light feels his body tense up at the sight of it, haunted by the fear from that day. But things were different now because he had powerful warriors by his side, and they were ready to fight without hesitation. Nizuna drops her usual airheaded tone, filled with rage that a lowly training mutt would dare show its face in front of Light. Ellie's furious too, ready to punish the creature for its arrogance. Oyuki is equally disgusted. Just the hound's presence is disturbing Light's peace, and she promises to wipe out their entire breed if needed. They make it clear that they're about to unleash the overwhelming force of their level 99 strength. But before they can make a move, Light gently steps in and tells them it's alright. His voice alone is enough to make them stop instantly. He reassures them that he's fine now. Surprisingly, Light even apologizes to the beast for scaring it. In the back of his mind, he knows that if he ever gave the word, his girls would wipe the hellhounds from existence. Then Light gets to the reason he gathered them. He informs them that Maya's returned and her mission was a success, which means it's time. Their target has fallen right into the trap, and now they move to phase 2. The girls are a bit annoyed that May got to take the lead, but they're just as fired up knowing they're finally moving forward. Light turns and leads them forward, declaring that the first dish of his long-awaited revenge is finally ready to be served. Far away in the City of Wolves, one of Light's targets, Garou, strolls through the streets. The people cheer for him like he's a hero, blissfully unaware that vengeance is already on its way. The villagers absolutely adore Garou, so much so that one of them even suggests he should date his sister. They constantly shower him with praise, and Garou doesn't shy away from it for a second. He basks in the admiration, boldly telling everyone to step aside for a true megastar. Nearby, a human rummages through some garbage, and Garou finds the sight utterly revolting. Without hesitation, he refers to the man as street trash, violently hurling him to the ground before spitting in his face. Like many of his kind, Garou harbors open disdain for humans, and he warns the man to disappear and never show his face again. Later, at a local tavern, he confidently claims the best seat and instructs his entourage to order anything they like, boasting that he's been earning handsomely. His companions heap praise on him, calling him a symbol of pride for all beast folk, even though he himself once clawed his way up from the filth of the slums. Now he's a leader admired by many. With unfiltered arrogance, he tells them that becoming someone like him isn't something just anyone can do. He's mastered the art of influence, and since beast folk are naturally inclined to follow, all he needs to do is leverage that trait, then life becomes royalty. According to him, the key to success lies in properly categorizing tasks, knowing which ones are worth the investment and which consume too much effort for too little return in power or profit. One of the less intelligent beast folk brings up an old job Garou took 3 years ago involving the conqueror of tribes, asking whether it had been lucrative. Another companion scolds him for prying, but the wolf-like leader answers calmly, stating that the federation they worked for had bound them by oath, making it impossible to reveal any specific details. He recalls, however, that it was the easiest and most profitable mission he'd ever taken. Just eliminate one insignificant, worthless human boy, and now he's both wealthy and respected. Still, something about that portal nags at him. He never discovered where it led, though he highly doubts someone like Light could possibly survive. What intrigues him more is the mysterious maestro that the Federation was so obsessed with locating. The thought alone sends a chill through him, warning that digging too deep into it might be dangerous. Before he can think further, his thoughts are interrupted by the sudden arrival of a stunning young woman revealed to be Mai, who politely asks if they can speak. She inquires whether he is Garou, the beast folk leader, and he nods after casually sipping from his drink. Mai falsely claims to have served as the maid of Master Light, who she explains hails from an esteemed noble bloodline. Garou is stunned by this revelation and begins to wonder if he had kept Light alive, it would have been more profitable for him. Mai continues her deception, claiming that she has been searching for Light for the past 3 years and that every clue she followed led her to this country the very place where he was last seen traveling with a new party. Garou casually admits that he was indeed part of that group and confirms that Light had been among them. Mai's eyes glisten as she feigns sorrow, saying she heard rumors that Light perished inside the dungeons and was never seen again. Garou nods solemnly, agreeing that it's true that Light met a tragic end, but Mai gently asks if he could guide her to the site where it happened, explaining that it would bring her comfort to visit the place where Light drew his last breath. Garou responds bluntly, asking what's in it for him. To his surprise, Mai calmly places a small bag on the table, and inside are 3 solid bars of gold. His companions are stunned into silence, their eyes wide, but Garou keeps a straight face as his mind races. He wonders whether this is a setup or if the girl genuinely seeks nothing more than a guide into the depths of the dungeons, but after a moment's thought, he decides to take the deal. In his mind, a fragile human woman poses no threat to someone of his strength, as she couldn't even touch a strand of his fur, let alone harm him. Garou eventually leads her into the dungeons, accompanied by his loyal followers. After several hours of trekking through damp tunnels, he turns to ask if she's holding up. Mai, though visibly drained, offers a faint smile and insists she can continue. Garou smirks inwardly, thinking about how fortune always seems to favor him. He plans to rob her of her gold once they arrive, and then defile her right there, over the grave of the man she mourns. Finally, they reach the cavern where Light had once been abandoned and left to die. Garou gestures ahead, claiming this is the spot where Light met his unfortunate fate. He spins a false tale about a group of monsters ambushing them, saying Light didn't have time to flee, was torn apart, and then triggered a teleportation trap, and was never to be seen again. Mai collapses to her knees, tears streaming down her face, while Garou's thoughts turn cruel. He mocks how pitiful humans are, so fragile, so unaware of danger even as it closes in. His men subtly spread out, forming a circle and sealing off the only escape, while Garou continues his performance, pretending to laymen that he tried to save Light, but failed. Just as he prepares to strike, Mai's tone suddenly changes. Her voice hardens as she declares that only the most depraved creatures in existence could deceive someone as pure-hearted as Light, luring him into a filthy dungeon only to betray him. Her words echo sharply against the stone walls as she glances around, regret burning in her eyes, admitting that if she had entered Light's service even a little sooner, he would have never been hunted, shot through the leg, and beaten until he could barely breathe. Garou instantly senses danger and instinctively leaps backward, his mind racing with confusion about how on earth this woman knows such specific details. His followers glance around, clearly puzzled, unaware of the full weight of what's just been said. But Garou knows better. Yet only individuals who could possibly be aware of that event are either members of the Concord of Tribes or high-ranking figures from the nation's elite. He narrows his eyes and demands to know who she's working for, accusing her of being a spy dispatched by a rival tribe. She scoffs in response, boldly declaring that she serves no one but Light, and that Garou is about to face her fury. The raw energy surging from her sends a shudder through him, which he finds deeply unsettling. He tries to reassure himself that she's nothing more than a worthless human, good only for being used and discarded. But the moment she locks eyes with him, a cold wave of dread washes over him. His instincts are screaming the truth that this is no bluff, and if he fights her, he's going to die. Just as Mai is about to strike, a calm voice echoes from the shadows, and it's Light's voice urging her to stand down, saying that he'll handle Garou personally. Garou's eyes widen, refusing to believe what he's hearing. But then, Light steps forward into view, his tone almost casual, as if greeting an old acquaintance. He tells Garou he's come to settle the score from 3 years ago. Suddenly regaining his swagger, Garou bursts into laughter, claiming he never thought he'd see Light again. He mocks him for being a pathetic level 15 human, bragging that someone like him couldn't possibly stand against a level 158 raid boss. He sneers, saying he doesn't even care how the hell Light survived, but now at last he can slay him with his own hands and drag his corpse back as evidence. Light exhales softly, asking if Garou isn't at least curious about who Mai is or how powerful she really might be. Garou shrugs it off, admitting that he has no clue about the true strength of this so-called maid, but he's absolutely certain that weak little humans will never measure up to beast folk like them. He boasts that all his men are above level 130 and that they'll crush them with overwhelming force. Without further delay, he gives the signal to attack. 2 of his subordinates rush toward Light at full speed, weapons drawn, ready to strike him down. But in an instant, Mai intercepts them, appearing before they even blink. Their heads fall cleanly to the ground in the same spot while their bodies collapse in silence. She coldly warns that anyone who dares to threaten Light will lose their life. But Light calmly instructs her to fall back and block all the exits because this time he wants to have a little fun himself. Garou's men start to lose their nerve, unable to comprehend what they've just witnessed. But Garou quickly tries to get them back in line, brushing it off as nothing more than a cheap parlor trick she pulled, nothing real. Light looks at him and asks if he still honestly believes humans are weaker, if it ever crossed his mind that humanity might be the most powerful race of them all. Garou bursts into laughter, proudly flexing his level as if that ends the conversation. But Light calmly responds, saying that a level is just a number and it means nothing when it comes to true strength. Garou's patience snaps, and with a furious roar, he and all his cronies launch themselves at Light in full force. But to their shock, Light doesn't flinch and stands as still as a mirror's surface. Then, in an instant, he erupts into motion, parrying every strike and flooring each of the beast warriors in flawless succession. One by one, they crash to the ground, dazed and breathless. Light steps toward Garou and asks him again if he still thinks humans are weak. But Garou, consumed by pride, refuses to accept defeat. Gritting his teeth, he pushes through the pain, vaults back to his feet, and shouts that no human could ever rival him. Determined, he pulls a glowing magic crystal from his pocket and slams it onto the floor, summoning his familiar, an enormous level 500 wolf monster. Light watches calmly and asks if that's truly the best Garou can do. But Garou assumes he's stunned into silence and mocks him, urging him to start begging. Light doesn't budge and tells Garou to go ahead and strike, promising not to take a single step from where he's standing. Enraged, Garou commands his beast to unleash a blast so devastating it could obliterate an entire city block. The explosion rocks the dungeon and a cloud of dust swallows everything. But when it clears, Garou's expression freezes in disbelief. Light stands exactly where he was, untouched, not even a scratch marring his robes. Light smirks, mocking him for giving that overblown attack such a grand name when all it did was stir up a little dust. Garou is too stunned to reply, and now his men are visibly trembling, some barely able to hold themselves together. With a quiet confidence, Light announces it's his turn. He reaches into his coat like he's in the middle of a duel and pulls out a card just like in a trading card game. He plays the legendary level 9000 ultra-rare card, the Primal Wolf Divinity. The divine beast materializes behind him, radiant and ethereal, leaving the beast folk dumbstruck. Light gives a simple command: eliminate Garou's familiar. But instead of firing off a dramatic explosion, the divine wolf exhales gently, and that breath alone is enough. Its divine essence freezes Garou's massive wolf solid and then shatters it into gleaming fragments right in front of its stunned master. Garou stands frozen, mind spiraling, unable to accept that his level 500 monster was destroyed in an instant without even a real fight. But Light simply shrugs, telling him that he could have crushed the beast himself if he really wanted to. Then, as the final blow to Garou's pride, Light reveals his own level maxed out at 9,999. Garou begins to stammer, his whole body trembling as he mutters that this simply can't be real because humans aren't supposed to exceed level 100. And if Light were truly the same human from 3 years ago, he should have aged by now. Light calmly explains that he wears an age ring to halt his physical growth, a reminder of who he was and the day he was betrayed by the lowest form of filth to ever walk the earth. At that moment, Garou realizes his fate is sealed. He stands no chance, none at all, against the monster that Light has become. Knowing he's as good as dead, he does what any coward would. He drops his weapons and falls to his knees, begging for mercy. He pleads that it wasn't his fault, claiming he acted under orders from the Federation. With a trembling voice, he insists that he never intended to harm anyone, that his subordinates were the ones who came up with this entire plan and dragged him into it. His underlings stare at him in disbelief because this is the same man who was bragging about his power and dominance just this morning, and now he's bowing his head, begging for forgiveness, even offering to serve as Light's pet if it would spare his life. Light, however, remains indifferent, and instead he asks what the Maestro truly is and why the government is so obsessed with finding him. Garou answers honestly that he doesn't know, only that they were told the Maestro was likely a human. Light's tone hardens as he asks why they chose to kill him once they believed he wasn't the Maestro. Garou quickly prostrates himself again, swearing that he has no idea, that they were simply following orders. Light's eyes shift toward the other beast folk, demanding to know if any of them possess real information. In a desperate bid to survive, they all start shouting that they do. But May's special eyes flare with power, exposing their lies. Without hesitation, she cuts them down where they stand, their blood splattering across the cavern floor. She coldly declares that anyone who dares to lie before Light will meet death by her hand. Light turns back to Garou and asks if he believes there's anyone strong enough to challenge him should he decide to wage war on the surface. Garou admits the truth that Light's power is beyond comprehension, enough to crush nations single-handedly. But he adds that if the nations unite and unleash the weapons they've been developing, even someone like Light might face difficulties, especially with only a May by his side. Light smirks and tells him he wants to show him something. With a flick of his hand, he casts teleportation magic, transporting them straight to his own throne room. Garou's sanity nearly snaps the instant he arrives, His mind can't process what he's seeing, an army so vast and terrifying that the weakest among them is level 1,500, while 4 maids stand at level 9,999. The rest range between 6,000 and 9,000, each radiating divine power. Garou can't speak, and a single tear slips down his cheek as the horrifying truth sinks in. Light could erase the entire planet in the blink of an eye. He isn't just powerful, he's a walking apocalypse, and Garou can only tremble as he wonders what will happen when that deity finally decides to go to war. The following morning, Light returned to his hometown, hoping to reunite with his family and bring them back to his dungeon city. Tragically, by the time he arrived, all that remained was a heap of shattered ruins and rotting corpses. It appeared that the village had been annihilated around 6 months prior by unknown assailants, leaving no survivors. Light began combing through the remnants, searching for bodies so he could at least provide his loved ones with a proper burial. To his relief, none of the remains seemed to belong to his younger siblings, leading him to believe they might still be alive somewhere. But sadly, the same could not be said for his parents. Gold, noticing the weight of the moment, asked if Light was holding up, acknowledging how difficult this must be to process, but Light assured him he would manage. Right now, their focus had to remain on the current mission, so he requested Gold and Nemumu to assist in gathering as much intelligence as possible. While it had become clear that their military strength was formidable enough to rival the world's major powers, rushing headfirst into conflict would be reckless. He wanted detailed information about the capabilities of each nation. Moreover, Light suspected that the destruction of his village was directly linked to rumors of him being a maestro, so he was determined to uncover what a maestro truly is and why such a title would warrant so much bloodshed. And if it turned out that all this devastation was the result of a few power-hungry elites chasing influence, then he vowed to reduce the world to ashes and personally force the culprits to swallow the aftermath. Gold sympathized with Light's anger but cautioned him to control his fury in public. The aura he was emitting could easily kill an ordinary person on the spot. Light apologized for his lack of restraint and equipped an item called the Fool's Mask to suppress his energy and conceal his identity. After paying his final respects at his parents' graves and quietly apologizing for not being able to protect them, he and Gold and Nemumu took off, heading toward the city of Dagas. Along the way, Nemumu, curious and slightly unsure, asked what Light intended to do once they arrived. Before Light could answer, Gold advised her to be mindful of how she addresses their lord while they're on the surface. And Light explained that using his real name could alert those affiliated with Concord. So for the time being, he would go by the alias Dark during their mission, and Nemumu nodded in understanding. As for his plans in Dagas, Light informed her that he intended to register as an adventurer under the name Dark. And by rising through the ranks, he hoped to gradually gain access to valuable information from the upper circles within the guild. After a short while, Nemumu spots the city of Dagas on the horizon. Since flying straight in would attract unnecessary attention, Light recommends landing in the forest and making the rest of the journey on foot. Still, with Gold's dazzling suit of armor, they're bound to stand out regardless. As the trio makes their way through the woods, they stumble upon a troubling scene, a human merchant being ambushed by a group of dwarven bandits. Although they would prefer to stay unnoticed until reaching the city, Gold's armor includes embedded sparkle effects that catch the light and, unfortunately, the attention of the thieves. The dwarves then decide to try their luck robbing him as well, which ends poorly for them, as they are left tied up and humiliated in the middle of the trail. The grateful merchant and his son, overwhelmed with relief, offer Light and his companions a ride to the city as thanks for their timely rescue. During the trip, the boy can't stop talking about how incredible Gold was in battle, admitting he'd never seen anyone take down dwarves with such ease. His father guesses they must be a well-known team of adventurers, but Light clarifies that they haven't even registered yet. Surprised by the response, the man tells them that if they are serious about becoming adventurers, Dagas is the ideal place to do it. The city boasts one of the largest guilds in the region and sits at the border between the elf, dwarf, and human territories. With a solid population of humans residing there, it's considered one of the more welcoming cities for their kind. He even mentions owning a successful human-run hotel and invites them to stay there if they need lodging. Not long after, they reach the outskirts of Dagas. Light asks Colonel to drop them off at the city gates as they prefer to walk the rest of the way on foot. For Gold and Nemumu, this is their first time setting foot in a surface city, and they quickly take note of the many storefronts selling armor and weaponry. Light explains that it's no surprise because this place is filled with adventurers, and with the nearby dwarf kingdom known for its blacksmithing prowess, it's only natural that their goods are sold here in abundance. When the group finally arrives at the guild hall, Nemumu observes that humans tend to scatter and avoid eye contact whenever someone from another race passes by. Light interprets this behavior as evidence that humans aren't exactly treated with respect in the city either, even if that discrimination isn't openly acknowledged. Light makes his way to the front desk to register, and as expected, he's required to begin at F rank. That means he'll need to complete a few entry-level quests later on to raise his status. But before handling any of that, securing a place to stay takes priority. Recalling that Colonel mentioned owning a hotel, Light decides to head there with the others. Colonel is visibly surprised to see Light again and asks how he can assist him, and Light explains that he has a rather specific request. He would like to rent out the entire top floor of the building, and under no circumstances should anyone, staff included, be allowed to enter. To seal the deal, Light drops a heavy bag of gold coins onto the counter. Colonel is left utterly speechless, unsure how to respond. Light offers to pay even more if needed, but Colonel quickly assures him that this is already 10 times more than necessary. He also says he can't accept such an extravagant sum from the man who saved his life earlier. However, Light remains firm in his decision, and eventually Colonel accepts the generous offer and promises to prepare the rooms immediately. Not long after, Light and the group head upstairs. Once inside, Light takes out several perception-blocking spell cards and activates them throughout the room, ensuring that no one can eavesdrop or spy on them. Finally, able to let his guard down, he pulls up a chair and sits, taking a moment to rest. As he settles in, Nemumu speaks up and says that while she understands Light is incredibly strong and has chosen to become an adventurer here to gather intelligence, there's always a risk that he could be injured on the surface. She believes it might be safer for him to return to the dungeon city and let the rest of them handle matters on his behalf. Although Light is generally a calm and considerate person, Nemumu's suggestion hits a nerve. To him, it sounds like she's trying to sideline him from his own mission of revenge, like she thinks he's not capable of carrying it out himself, so that implication infuriates him. Nemumu immediately realizes her mistake and drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness, but the damage has already been done. Light's expression turns deadly, and for a moment, it looks like he might actually harm her. Sensing the rising tension, Gold steps in, laughing lightly to ease the mood. He tells Light that Nemumu simply doesn't grasp the emotional weight behind revenge, and he explains that Light intends to carry out his vengeance with his own hands, no intermediaries, no delegation, and that's something truly noble to stand behind. Hearing Gold's lighthearted jab brings Light back to his senses, and he realizes that he may have let his emotions spiral out of control. He kneels down and apologizes to Nemumu, admitting that he overreacted and understands her words came from genuine concern for his safety. Nemumu, however, insists that she was the one in the wrong for speaking out of turn, so she pleads for the chance to renew her vow of loyalty. Although Light doesn't think such a gesture is necessary, he agrees to honor her request. With care, Nemumu lifts his foot and presses her lips to it. In this world, a kiss to the foot is the ultimate sign of deference and respect toward one's sovereign. Still, Light has never been fond of this custom, especially recalling how awkward it felt when all of his subordinates lined up to perform the ritual when he first summoned them. Even Gold can't help but comment that the whole thing is a bit odd, especially since Nemumu seems to be enjoying it far too much. The following day, Light and the others set out toward the dungeon. As they stroll through the city streets, they quickly draw attention. Gold, clad in radiant armor, sparkles like a walking treasure chest, and Nemumu's striking beauty turns plenty of heads. As for Light, the only remark people seem to have is that he looks strange in his mask, but that only adds to his enigmatic dark persona, so he isn't bothered in the slightest. When they reach the dungeon entrance, they find a long line of people waiting to get in. Gold quickly notices something odd. There aren't any elves present. So Light explains that the elf and dwarf kingdoms are currently locked in a territorial dispute over ownership of this particular dungeon, which has led them to avoid crossing paths. Nemumu compliments Light on always having an answer for everything, which he appreciates, though he raises an eyebrow and asks if she really needs to stand that close, as her melon is pressing hard against the back of his head. She replies with complete seriousness that it's her duty to guard him at all times, and maintaining close proximity is part of that responsibility. Before Light can protest further, he notices a small group of 3 cutting ahead in line. The shortest one is likely a servant, while the second appears to have received moderate combat training. But it's the man in front who truly catches Light's eye. Despite the oversized weapon slung across his back, his movements are sharp, deliberate, and practiced, signs of a seasoned warrior. The surrounding humans hesitate to confront him, likely afraid of provoking a deadly response, but Light has no such fear. Stepping forward, he calls out the elf for his rudeness, stating plainly that cutting in line is unacceptable. The elf immediately bristles with rage when he realizes a human had the audacity to speak to him. He reaches for his sword, clearly ready to escalate the situation, but the elder accompanying him quietly advises that it's not worth causing a scene over something so trivial. After a brief pause, the warrior reluctantly agrees and moves to the back of the line. But as he passes by Light, he leans in and coldly warns him that he'll come to regret showing such disrespect. Once the elf is out of sight, the surrounding humans begin to cheer for Light, applauding him for standing up to the arrogant bully. The kids from earlier even return to personally thank him, having finally mustered the courage to approach. Light tells them there's no need to thank him because he simply acted out of self-interest, but the children remain sincerely grateful nonetheless. Right then, one of the kids curiously asks Gold if his armor is really made of actual gold since everyone nearby has been wondering the same thing. Before Gold can respond, Nemum steps in and explains that his armor isn't made of gold at all, because if it were, it'd be far too soft to offer any meaningful protection. The boy starts to ask if Gold just wears it for show, but his friends quickly stop him, realizing that might come off as rude. Still, Gold takes no offense. With a grin, he proudly admits that he absolutely wears it for attention, because no color better reflects the shining example he strives to be as a knight. The conversation shifts as the kids ask if this is Light's group's first time venturing into the dungeon. Light confirms, but also wonders aloud how they guessed. The children explain that this floor is usually reserved for more experienced adventurers due to the high entrance fee, and most who enter come prepared to camp inside. And since Light's team didn't bring any visible gear, it was pretty easy to tell they were new to this specific dungeon. Right then, a guard calls for the next party to proceed. The kids wave goodbye and dash off together into the dungeon. Watching them disappear, Light and the others consider whether they should start carrying fake equipment. Even though all their actual supplies are stored inside an item box, it might be worth the effort just to avoid looking like total newbies. A short while later, it's finally their turn to enter. For Light, this is the first time he's stepped into a dungeon that isn't the Abyss. Dungeons are saturated with mana that grows more potent the deeper one goes, often spawning monsters, traps, and even entire ecosystems. In essence, the inside of a dungeon functions as a world of its own. Once they reach the first floor, Light casts concealment magic over the group, shielding them from detection, and with that, they begin flying together toward the second floor. At the same time, the elf from earlier is furiously venting his frustration on a pack of orcs, unable to accept that a mere human had the gall to speak to him so casually. His name is Kito, and he loudly declares himself a legendary hero of the elf kingdom, boasting that the blood of a maestro flows through his veins, making him deserving of reverence. He mutters bitterly that such humiliation would never happened if his level weren't currently so low. But Yanok, the elder traveling with him, reminds him that a level of 1,500 is already far beyond the standard cap for elves. Still, Kito scoffs at the idea since it's not enough. He needs the kind of overwhelming power that would allow him to erase every last clown who dared mock or look down on him. Yanok, clearly holding on to some resentment of his own, says he understands the sentiment. After all, he was exiled for research no one respected, so if there's any chance to use that very research to help Kito grow stronger, he's all in. Back on the other side of the dungeon, Light and his team have already made their way down to the third floor, having just cleared out a massive horde of orcs. Light suggests it's a good time to head back since they've gathered more than enough proof of their strength for the guild. Plus, that last battle left him a mess and he's eager to clean up. The moment Nemu hears that, she eagerly volunteers to wash every damn inch of his body once they return, but the fool Light doesn't even respond. As they make their way back up, Light and the group spot the kids from earlier and descend to meet them. But before they can say much, a loud commotion erupts from deep within the forest. In a sudden burst of chaos, dozens of wolves come charging through the trees. The kids quickly panic and tell Light they need to fall back because there's no way they can take on that many enemies. But Light calmly tells them that the wolves aren't the real danger here because something far worse is coming. And a moment later, the ground trembles and a towering quad-scythe mantis bursts into view. The young adventurers stare in complete disbelief at the sight before them, given that the mantis monster species was believed to have been wiped out a decade ago, and they clearly aren't equipped to handle one on their own. The group's leader tells Mia to hit the mantis with a bit of magic to distract it, but he knows that won't cut it, so in desperation, he turns to Light and the others, pleading for their help to disorient the creature so they can all escape safely. But when Light hears that they're planning to retreat, he casually asks if that means they're okay with him taking it down himself. The kids think he's lost his mind since a mantis of that size is probably at least level 500, but Light reassures them there's no need to panic because he and his companions can handle it just fine. Gold then steps forward to land the first strike, but to his surprise, the mantis blocks several of his blows with minimal damage, meaning its claws must be a lot tougher than he expected. Light steps in next and fires a blazing arrow directly at the mantis, but just before it hits, the mantis redirects it and sends it flying back toward him. Watching this unfold, the kids begin to worry that Light and the others might be in serious danger, so they urge Mia to hurry up and cast her spell, but she's too stunned to concentrate because she just witnessed Light unleash a high-grade combat spell without even chanting, and she had no idea that was even possible. Since the rest of the kids aren't familiar with magic, they can't really tell what counts as impressive, so they don't know whether to intervene or stay back. But Gold tells them it's better if they sit this one out, and to top it off, he offers them a brief lesson in what it means to be a true knight. For starters, he explains that his shield isn't just for blocking, and as the mantis lunges at him, he pivots and flawlessly counters the attack, completely destroying one of its claws. He then adds that a knight must never miss an opening, and with the mantis still reeling from the blow, Gold moves behind it and slices off one of its legs. Light follows up with another wave of fire arrows, but this time when the mantis deflects them, the arrows curve midair and strike its back. Light has taken full control of their trajectory, so no matter what the mantis tries, the arrows will find their target every single time. Eventually, the mantis has all of its limbs blown clean off, and realizing it doesn't stand a chance against Light, it turns and makes a desperate dash toward the forest. Light is caught off guard and surprised that the creature is intelligent enough to recognize when it's completely outmatched and attempt to retreat. But he has no intention of letting it escape after everything that just happened, so he quickly casts a massive firewall in its path to block access to the trees, and Mia absolutely loses it. She's never witnessed someone deploy such wide-area tactical magic so instantly in her entire life. And with the path forward sealed, the mantis has nowhere left to run, but it still has its wings, so in a last-ditch effort to survive, it launches itself into the air. But before it can flee, Nemumu leaps skyward after it and effortlessly shreds it to bits mid-flight. After she lands, Gold tells her she messed up, which really irritates her since she thought she was doing exactly what Light wanted, destroying the monster. But Gold explains that she also obliterated all the valuable parts, which means there's nothing left to sell once they return to town. Realizing her mistake, Nemumu immediately starts begging Light for forgiveness, but he assures her it's not a big deal. Off to the side, the kids are still frozen in place, unsure if they really just witnessed a human take down a quad-sized mantis, or if they collectively hallucinated the whole thing. And after a few minutes, as they dig through the remains, they stumble upon the mantis's magic gem. Miraculously, it's still intact, meaning Light can use it as proof of his achievement. But just before he departs, one of the kids approaches him and asks if he's part of a famous adventurer party or something, because there's no way someone that powerful is just a rookie. But Light calmly replies that he and his friends are indeed ranked F, leaving the kids even more confused than before. With the battle now over, Mia conjures a ball of water using her magic and offers it to Light so he can rinse off all the mantis goo. He's genuinely touched that she would use her precious mana for his sake, but she insists it's the least she can do. Since the sun is starting to set, the leader invites Light and the others to camp with them for the night, not just because it's dangerous to travel in the dark, but also because Mia is dying to chat about magic with Light, and since there's no real downside to staying, Light agrees. Then, while the group is gathered around sharing a meal, Maya starts bombarding Light with all kinds of questions about his past. But since he obviously can't reveal his real background or future goals, he improvises a story and claims that both of his parents were exceptional mages, which explains why he's able to cast spells without needing incantations. That explanation seems to satisfy Maya, but her brother still doesn't get what's so impressive about it. Hearing him say that, Maya launches into a passionate rant about how insane Light's magic really was. She explains that there are 3 primary classifications of magic. First, there's combat class magic, typically used against individual enemies. Then there's tactical class magic, which can affect a broad area, like the firewall Light cast earlier. And finally, there's strategic class magic, capable of impacting the world on a much larger, even global scale. That includes cataclysmic spells like triggering earthquakes or calling down meteor strikes, which usually require a team of elite mages to pool their mana and recite lengthy incantations in unison to even attempt. While other races can cast powerful magic with relative ease, it's extremely rare for humans to reach that level. That's why Mio is so stunned to see someone like Light pull off a spell of that caliber so effortlessly. Her brother might not understand the mechanics of magic all that well, but from how Maya explained it, he can tell Light is on a completely different level. Still, he tells Mia she deserves credit too, since her abilities were strong enough to earn her a formal recommendation to the Duchy's Magic Academy. It piques Light's interest, so he asks if they mean the academy overseen by the Principality of Nine, the governing body formed by all 9 major races. Mia confirms that's the one, and Gold adds that being recognized by the Principality is no small feat, which makes it clear she's a highly capable mage. Her brother agrees, but says their circumstances made things difficult. Both of their parents passed away during a plague, and without the money to afford academy tuition, they had to form an adventuring party with their childhood friends, Jimra and Wordy, just to survive. Currently, their main objective is to earn enough through dungeon runs to eventually send Maya to that academy. But Maya says she's already happy just being able to travel with the people she cares about, so they don't need to go to extreme lengths for her. Her brother promises not to do anything reckless, and watching the two of them talk like that brings back memories for Light, specifically of the moments he used to share with his own younger sister. Right then, Mia and her brother ask Light what inspired him to become an adventurer. So sticking to his cover story, he tells them his parents died in a fire, and he was left with severe burns, prompting him to search for a rare magic potion that could heal his injuries. The story sounds so tragic that everyone falls silent, unsure of how to respond. Sensing the awkward tension, Jimra decides to break it by abruptly asking if Gold and Nemumu are a couple. Nemumu immediately bristles and snaps that she would never, under any circumstances, date someone like Gold. Gold, on the other hand, remains composed and casually replies that he has no interest in dating a woman as immature as Nemimu. While those two go back and forth in their usual bickering, somewhere deeper in the dungeon, Kito is busy slaying orcs to collect the necessary biological samples Yannak needs for his next experiment, an attempt to bypass the level caps placed on every race. Now that they gathered enough magical material, Yannak says the only thing left is a human test subject, and Kito already knows exactly who he wants for that role. Time passes and Light stops by the guild to exchange his most recent batch of magic stones. A crowd quickly gathers around him, amazed by the sheer volume of gems he managed to bring back. Ever since Light and his team took down the Quad-Scythe Mantis, their reputation in the city has skyrocketed, and people have started referring to their group as Black Motley. Even the receptionists, who used to ignore them, have begun treating them with far more respect, and Light is genuinely pleased by all the attention, since that kind of recognition was part of his goal from the beginning. As he and the team are walking toward the dungeon, a man suddenly calls out to him from the road. Nemimu instantly goes on guard, but the man quickly assures them he means no harm. He introduces himself as Suvalin, and the guy next to him is Gilbert. They explain that they heard Light's party not only defeated a Quad-Scythe Mantis, but also made it to the 5th floor of the dungeon, and when they spotted him passing by, they just had to say something. At that moment, the rest of Suvalin and Gilbert's party shows up, reminding them it's time to enter the dungeon, so they say goodbye to Light and head inside. Watching them go, Light finds it nice to see he's inspiring hope among the other humans in town. However, not everyone is thrilled, since many from other races are openly envious of Light's growing strength and are convinced he's a fraud. Light expected as much though, but if they're not going to accept his achievements willingly, then he'll just have to make them recognize the truth by delivering results they can't ignore. And once he steps into the dungeon, Light informs Gold and Nemumu that he plans to return to the 5th floor today. But before heading down, he notices the same group of kids from before and decides to drop by and greet them. Maya and the others are surprised to see him again. It's been a while since they last crossed paths, but Maya's brother says it's actually great timing because Maya had been wanting to give something to Light. Maya seems a little shy at first, but she eventually hands Light a small clamshell container filled with ointment she made herself. She recalls him saying that he suffered severe burns across his body, so she created it to help ease some of the pain. Light is genuinely touched by the kind gesture, though it does make him feel a bit guilty for lying to her about the burns. Wanting to return the kindness, he pulls out one of his own items to give to Maya as a gift. It's a bracelet, and a beautiful one at that, so Maya hesitates, unsure if she should accept something that looks so valuable. But Light assures her that her gift truly meant a lot to him, and he wants her to have the bracelet as a token of appreciation. Maya lights up and promises to treasure it forever. However, after Light and his group head off, Amumu asks if he's really okay with giving away an SS-class item so casually. That bracelet was a wishing bracelet capable of creating a small miracle depending on the wearer's intent, so Light thought it would be the perfect gift for someone like Maya. A short while later, they arrive on the 5th floor, which is completely blanketed in snow. This actually works to their advantage as the snow provides excellent cover. Light assigns Gold and Nemumu the task of hunting Yetis while he's away, then activates a teleportation item that whisks him back to his throne room within the dungeon city. Once there, he sits down with a warm cup of tea and checks in with his team on the progress of their revenge operations. Ellie reports that preparations are almost complete, and they'll be ready to move to the next stage very soon. Light is pleased with the update and tells Ellie she's free to use whatever resources she needs to keep things running smoothly. In the meantime, he asks Mai to continue overseeing matters in the Abyss and instructs Oyuki to remain focused on scouting through the ancient forest. Right then, Mizuna asks if there's anything he'd like her to handle in the meantime. Light isn't quite sure how to respond since Mizuna's only real strength lies in monster combat, so she's not exactly useful outside of that. Still, not wanting her to feel left out, he tells her to remain on standby and protect the city in case a dangerous enemy shows up. That's more than enough for her, so she proudly declares that no one will get past her while she's on watch. Light smiles to himself, looking forward to the day his plan finally unfolds, and he wants to relish every second of the look of pure misery on Sasha's face when he stands in front of her. Elsewhere in the dungeon, Gilbert and Suvalin had made camp and were standing watch while their party members rested. At one point, Suvalin needed to relieve himself, so he stepped briefly into the woods. But when he returned, what he saw was horrifying. Gilbert's severed head lay on the ground, with Kito standing calmly over the corpse. Their two sleeping companions had already been silently executed, and Kito makes it clear this massacre isn't personal. It's fueled entirely by his deep-rooted hatred for the human race. Blinded by rage, Suvalin wants to strike back, but he knows full well he's outmatched, so thinking quickly, he throws down a smoke bomb and bolts, determined to escape and alert the guild about what happened. He feels confident about his chances after almost magic is useless unless the caster can see their target. But just when he thinks he's gotten away, something strikes him hard in the back. Looking up through the haze, he sees Kido effortlessly flying toward him on a magical hoverboard. Moments later, Suvalin is knocked unconscious by Yanak, who berates Kido for killing all the humans despite being crystal clear about needing them alive. But Kido doesn't see what the big deal is because in his eyes, killing a few worthless humans shouldn't matter, especially since Yanak never cared about them in the first place. But Yanak is running out of time and viable test subjects, and his research is still unstable, so he points out that Suvalin will likely die from side effects long before the formula is perfected, so they'll need to hunt down more human lab rats and fast. Not long after, back on the surface, Nemumi is caught in a heated exchange with the guild receptionist, pushing to get Light promoted. Even though the receptionist knows just how powerful Light is, she reminds them that they already bent the rules once to bump him up from F rank to D rank not too long ago, and it's still too early for another exception. Still, she mentions that if Light pulls off something truly remarkable again, the guild won't have any choice but to raise his rank, so he makes up his mind to go for it. Later that day at the inn, we see him holding a poster about an unknown killer targeting adventurers. So he figures that taking down this murderer should count as a major achievement, and he sets his sights on hunting him down. The problem is, he doesn't have a single clue to start with, which makes things tricky. Gold throws out the idea of using his Goksha ability to draw a card that might help track the killer, but Light explains the cards are totally random, and the odds of pulling a tracking one are insanely low. Hearing that, Nemunu wonders if they should head back into the abyss to bring someone more skilled at tracking. While it's not a bad idea, the trip would take too much time, and Light doesn't want to waste a second when people's lives are at stake. The killer seems to be going after humans specifically, and he refuses to let that slide. Right then, the three of them sense a spatial distortion tearing open inside the room. Something's definitely about to arrive, so they immediately drop into formation and get ready for combat. But instead of a threat, Light is stunned to see Maya tumble out of the portal unconscious. He rushes forward and catches her, only to watch the miracle bracelet he gave her snap in half. He doesn't know what she just went through, but whatever it was, it clearly wasn't good, so he carries her gently to bed, hearing her mutter fragments in her sleep, saying she needs to warn him about something important. Light then casts a healing spell on her to speed up her recovery, but she's still too weak to speak. With no other choice, he quietly apologizes and prepares to read her mind. Using a high-level spell, he dives into her thoughts and is suddenly hit with a vivid memory. Maya and her team coming face to face with another party of human adventurers. The second party gave them a serious heads up that there were reports going around about an adventurer killer on the loose, and from what they heard, his targets were strictly human. The kids had heard whispers about it before, but they figured it was just some wild beast causing trouble. Still thinking about it now, no regular monster would go after humans specifically. That realization made Maya uneasy because she knew full well that their team didn't stand a chance if they ever crossed paths with that killer. The other party felt the same, which is why they were in a rush to leave the dungeon. But before they took off, they told the kids that sticking around was a bad idea, and until someone puts that psycho down, this place isn't safe for human adventurers. The kids didn't take that warning lightly, and they agreed to head back up right away, but since they hadn't planned for such an abrupt exit, they were already feeling drained. Still, they had no choice but to push on, even as night fell, because stopping meant risking their lives. And just their luck right then, they hear Yanok's voice echo through the dark, warning them that it's dangerous to be wandering around so late. None of the kids had any clue that these two were the killers they were so desperate to avoid, so Maya, not suspecting a thing, suggests they warn them too. They let Yanak and Kido know that there's been a string of murders happening in the dungeon and advise them to get out while they still can. Kido and Yanak thank them for the tip, and for a second, the kids feel relieved, thinking they must just be regular adventurers too. But then Yanak casually starts complaining that he should have cleaned up their last ambush better, since all this chatter has made human adventurers more cautious, and now they're avoiding the dungeon. That single sentence hits like a brick wall, so the kids freeze in horror as it dawns on them that they're standing face to face with the very murderers everyone's been terrified of, and Kido looks like he's enjoying every second of watching their fear sink in. The group is paralyzed with fear, but they quickly understand the truth. There's no way all of them can make it out alive, so the three boys draw their weapons and yell for Mia to run, ready to hold them off with everything they've got. Kaito is visibly offended that mere humans would believe they could take him on, so when Moya's brother charges at him, he casually slashes him across the chest without a shred of hesitation. He does the same to the other two boys as well. They're not dead yet, but their injuries are so devastating that they're barely hanging on. Still, they force themselves upright again and shout at Mia to run, choosing to throw themselves at Kido one last time. Their persistence only angers Kido further, so he decides he's done playing around and goes in for the kill. Yanak shouts at him, furious, that Kido just ruined his chance to use the boys as test subjects. But Kido snaps back, saying he's not about to let anyone who dared to disrespect him live, because fighting back like that, trying to protect someone, it's revolting. and he adds that Yanak can still perform his experiments if even one or two of them survive. Yanak admits that a magician does make for a valuable research subject, but he argues that those two boys could have been equally useful, so Kido swears he won't kill any more lab rats from here on. Still, before Yanak starts working on Maya, Kido wants to teach her how to crack a watermelon, because he's got needs that need satisfying. Yanak refuses to take part in that grotesque act, so he just tells Kido not to kill Maya and turns away in disgust. Maya is shaking in terror as Kido looms over her with sick intent, but before he can do anything, her brother miraculously staggers to his feet and screams at her to run. Yanak is astonished that the boy is still breathing with wounds like that, exactly the kind of resilience he needs in his subject, so he orders Kido to make sure the boy is taken alive no matter what. The boy's body is nearly shutting down, but he doesn't care. All he's thinking about is giving Maya a chance to escape. He screams at her one more time to run, and even though she doesn't want to abandon him, she realizes this might be her only window. So with Kido briefly distracted, she turns and sprints away. The moment Kido notices she's escaping, he gets ready to chase after her, only to be intercepted by Elio's desperate attack. Elio doesn't stand a chance of hurting Kido, but the move is enough to stall him and buy Maya a few extra seconds. Kido is itching to finish off Maya's brother once and for all, but Yanak reminds him yet again that he needs the boy alive, so Kido restrains himself from making a fatal move. While Elio staggered in place, his lips moved in a whisper, running through every strategy he could think of to buy Maya more time. His thoughts drifted back to a lesson he picked up from Gold during their first encounter. Gold had told him that while most people see a sword as a weapon and a shield as defense, true combat relies on creativity. The ability to surprise your opponent is what turns the tide of battle. That advice echoes in his head now, so Elio hurls his sword straight at Kido. Thinking this was the actual attack, Kido leans back to avoid the blade. But while he's focused on the sword, Elio charges in and slams his shield into Kido's jaw, sending him crashing to the ground. That was all he had in him, but it landed and Elio feels a flicker of pride. Even if this is the end, at least he got in one clean shot. Kido, stunned and furious, can't process the fact that a human actually struck him. Enraged and humiliated, he ignores Yanak's command to keep Elio alive and fires a spear of light straight through his stomach with his sword. But somehow Elio doesn't die right away, but Kido has no plans to end things quickly because he wants to make him suffer for daring to touch his precious face. Yanak cuts in, warning him not to waste any more time because if Maya escapes and word gets out, their entire operation will be exposed. Kido's still fuming, but he gets the point, and with a scowl, he turns and takes off after her. Maya had been running flat out, heart pounding in her chest. Just as the dungeon's exit comes into view, 3 glowing swords shoot down in front of her, blocking the path. She freezes in place, eyes wide because she hadn't expected Kido to catch up so fast. But he's wielding Grandius, the Phantasma-class weapon once held by the Elven Queendom, a legendary blade that lets its user spawn and control endless blades of light. He tells her it's pointless to run, as long as he's using Grandius she won't get far, but Maya refuses to surrender. Gritting her teeth, she chants a quick spell and hurls a spray of sharp icicles toward Kido, just enough to obscure his view. And then she turns and dashes into the forest, using the momentary distraction to vanish into the trees. But after a few more minutes of running, Kido catches up to her again and knocks her to the ground. He sneers and tells her she should feel honored to be sacrificed for the rise of a future legendary hero like himself, but Maya screams back that he doesn't deserve that title one bit. She says a real legendary hero isn't just strong, but also compassionate like light. But Kido, on the other hand, is just a pathetic coward who gets off on pushing around people weaker than him. That gets a nerve, so her words drag up memories Kido would rather forget. How the other elves used to laugh at him, call him a useless bully who only picks fights with those who can't fight back. That humiliation was part of why he got exiled from Elven society, but instead of taking the blame, Kido convinced himself that everyone else just failed to see how amazing he really was. Consumed by rage, he loses control again and completely forgets about keeping Maya alive, so he raises his weapon to finish her off. Maya knows she won't survive the blow, but she still refuses to give in. She's desperate, mentally scrambling to find some way to reach light, to cry out for help, and that's when the bracelet finally activates. Back in the present, after witnessing what Maya and the others went through, Light is seething with fury. Without hesitation, he turns to Gold and Nemumu and tells them to gear up because he's about to bring hell down on those elves. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, Yanak is doing everything he can to heal Elio, but from the looks of it, his body is way too far gone. The damage is beyond repair, and Yanak is genuinely frustrated because losing such a prime test subject feels like a huge waste. Then Kido walks in, and Yanak immediately demands to know whether he managed to catch the girl, but Kido shrugs and says he lost her. Yanak starts freaking out because he can't believe what he just heard, and he starts questioning how the hell Kido gets outsmarted by a human girl. Kido snaps back that it's not his fault because how was he supposed to know that she could vanish into thin air? Yanak's mind races, refusing to believe it, but the evidence is there, and somehow that girl had access to teleportation magic or items, so there's no denying it now. which means they're in serious trouble because if Mia tells the guild what went down, it won't take long before word gets to the Elf Nation. And once they find out Kido stole the Grandius sword, they'll be coming for him, no question. Worse yet, the Elf Nation won't just send anyone. They'll send the head nag himself, a warrior said to be around level 3000, with his entire personal guard ranked no lower than 2000. In short, if that happens, Kido and by extension Yanak are as good as dead. Their only chance at survival now lies in testing Yanak's experiments in hopes of making Kido powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with the elite Elven Knights. But just as they're preparing to leave, Light suddenly appears and calmly tells them they're not going anywhere. Kido immediately recognizes him as the same guy who called him out for cutting the line when he first entered the dungeon. But what truly throws him off is how a human managed to sneak up on him without him sensing a thing, especially considering he's level 1500. Light's expression drops when he sees Jimra and Wardy lying motionless on the ground. He's too late to save them, and the best he can do is gently shut their eyes and whisper an apology for not arriving sooner. Meanwhile, Gold rushes over to Elio and lifts him up. He still has a faint pulse, which means there might still be hope. Light focuses and channels a healing spell into Elio, then turns back toward Kido and demands an explanation. Actually, no. He immediately corrects himself because he doesn't care about their twisted reasons. The moment they made his friends suffer, they sealed their fate, and Light swears by his name that they're going to feel a level of agony so intense, they'll beg for death to come early. He then turns to Nemumu and Gold and tells them to stand back because this is something he wants to handle alone. Kaido, meanwhile, is completely insulted by the idea that a low-tier human dares to think he can take him on solo. He's had enough of being mocked and defied by lesser beings, so he promises to savor every second of tearing Light apart. The moment he launches his first attack, Light stops it cold with his staff, and honestly, he's a little underwhelmed because he expected more from Kido. And then Light slams his staff forward, nearly knocking Kido unconscious. Driven mad, Kido goes all in and activates the full power of his sword, unleashing wave after wave of radiant blades aimed straight at Light. But even as dozens of glowing blades fly toward him, some even slicing through parts of his cloaks, so Light calmly responds with a burst of ice magic, freezing and deflecting every last attack with ease. Kaido's face twists in disbelief, and he stomps and rages like a child throwing a tantrum, unable to comprehend how a mere human could be outperforming him. He starts ranting about how, with the ancient sword of Maestro in his hands, this should be impossible. Light at first wasn't even listening, but the second Kido mentions Maestro, his expression sharpens. That's the exact kind of clue he's been searching for, so he presses Kido, asking how he knows about the Maestros. So Kido laughs and says of course he knows because he was born with the blood of a Maestro in his veins. After discovering that Kido is descended from a legendary Maestro, Light informs Nemumu and Gold that the plan has changed. He was originally just going to slaughter Kido on the spot, but now he wants to drag him down into the abyss and extract every last bit of knowledge he can pry from his mind. The two get the message, so they tell him they'll handle Yanak while he focuses on Kido. But Yanak doesn't think it's fair that they're all targeting him when he's clearly not a fighter. Still, he came prepared for this kind of scenario, so he gestures behind him, drawing their attention to the two figures standing silently by his side, and they begin to transform, revealing themselves as the results of Yanak's human-monster hybrid experiments. Yanak starts going on about how he fused humans with monsters to break through the natural limits of the human body. He says he would have gone even further with his work, but it takes a ridiculous number of human test subjects to get a hybrid stable enough to function, so he plans to keep collecting more whenever he gets the chance. Gold, Nemumu, and Light are sickened by what he's done, but what makes it worse is that Light actually recognizes one of the hybrids. It's the same man he met back in town, someone he now regrets not being able to protect from becoming another piece of Yanak's twisted research. There's no saving him anymore, so Light quietly asks Nemumu and Gold to end the poor man's suffering. Without hesitation, Nemumu and Gold slice clean through the hybrids' bodies, trying to grant them peace, but Yanak just smirks and says it's not over yet. He reveals that the creatures were engineered to regenerate from any kind of damage, so simple cuts won't be enough to bring them down. Light starts to worry for Nemumu and Gold's safety, but he's got his hands full. Kaido keeps launching sword energy at him non-stop, and Light can't afford to take his eyes off the fight. Nemumu and Gold keep cutting down the hybrids again and again, but no matter what they do, the bodies repair themselves within seconds. Yanak watches from a distance, mocking them for thinking they stood a chance against his perfect creations. Both Nemumu and Gold are fed up, not just with Yanak's smug taunts, but with the thought of leaving those poor souls trapped in such agony. So they both decide it's time to use their ultimate techniques and end it quickly. Both Nemumu and Gold channel mana into their weapons and slash through the hybrids with everything they've got. Yanak starts taunting them again, thinking there's no way they'll actually manage to put down his creations, but then he notices something strange and the hybrids aren't getting back up. In fact, they look pretty damn dead, so panic sets in as he stares at the aftermath in disbelief, and he can't accept that the pinnacle of all his research could be wiped out so effortlessly. While he's still frozen in shock, standing over the ashes of what used to be his experiments, Nemumu casually walks up behind him and kicks him straight between the legs, just to shut him up once and for all. Meanwhile, Light has been dominating Kido with his relentless magic attacks, and every time one gets close, Kido's face contorts with panic. Light finds it hilarious, especially considering how smug Kido was acting just moments earlier. Refusing to let some pathetic human look down on him, Kido digs deep and activates the Holy Sword's final form, stacking multiple enchantments onto the blade and massively boosting its range. Light is mildly impressed because the sword really does seem insanely flexible. But no matter how flashy it looks, Kido's aim is trash, so he cannot land a single hit on Light. Frustrated, Kido starts yelling that Light's just a coward for dodging everything and insists he'd be dead already if he actually stood still. Which, yeah, is kind of the entire purpose of dodging, but Light decides to play along. He plants his feet, doesn't move an inch, and tells Kido to take his best shot. Kido assumes Light must have lost it, but he's not about to waste the opportunity. He charges up, jumps high, and brings the sword down with everything he's got. The hit connects, but to his horror, it barely leaves a scratch. Kaido stands there stunned, since there's no way a regular human should be able to tank a clean blow from Grandius. Light just stares him down and says he's welcome to keep swinging if that helps him understand the gap between them. Kaido goes wild, unleashing a flurry of attacks, slashing again and again, but not a single one even phases Light. Eventually, Light gets bored, so with a quick flick, he shatters Grandius' enchantment, drives a punch into Kido's gut, and then knocks him flying with a clean shot to the face. Kaido hits the ground hard, bouncing across it until he finally stops, bruised and bloodied. Light walks over and towers above him, his expression cold. He says he's got plenty of questions for Kido, so he's not going to kill him just yet. Not until he's made him feel a fraction of the suffering he caused his victims. Kido quickly realizes Light isn't messing around, and there's zero chance he's fighting his way out of this. So with no other options, he drops to his knees and starts pleading for his life. He admits he's from the Elven Nation and was once poised to lead the White Knights as their next commander, and in exchange for mercy, he swears he'll give Light any intel he wants. Right now, Kido looks absolutely pathetic, and the sight of him makes Light's blood boil. This was the guy parading around like some so-called legendary hero, and now he's groveling the second things don't go his way. A real hero fights until their last breath, standing for something even when the odds are hopeless. But Kido, for all his ego, couldn't even manage that. Honestly, Elio, Jimra, and Wardy were the real heroes because they faced off against Kito and Yanak to protect Maya, fully knowing they didn't stand a chance. Light turns to the lifeless bodies of Jimra and Wardy and offers them a quiet apology for not being able to save them, but he promises he'll do everything he can to make sure Elio pulls through. With that in mind, he says it's time to head back to the Abyss immediately. Right then, Kaido nervously asks what's going to happen to him, so Light tells him bluntly that he and Yanak are both coming along since he's not done with them yet, not until they answer every question he has. A second later, Light activates his teleport spell, and when Kido and Yanak open their eyes again, they're both stunned to find themselves in a totally unfamiliar location. Yanak is in disbelief, demanding to know where they are, so Light tells him they're in the deepest layer of the Abyss dungeon. Yanak can't wrap his head around it because they were just in Daggers a moment ago, and now they've been warped all the way to the most brutal dungeon in the world. But he still doesn't get why Light dragged them here. Light simply replies that this is where he lives, so Yanak and Kido stare at him like he's insane. No one in their right mind would choose to live in a place like this. But the moment they say that, Nemumu starts stomping Yanak's back flat for daring to suggest that Light would lie. The sound draws the others, who quickly gather around to see what's going on. They're excited to see Light again, but when they spot the two battered elves, they can't help but ask why he brought such trash with him. Light explains that these two are notorious criminals who use innocent people for unspeakable experiments, acts that led to countless deaths, including the lives of two close friends of his. Still, they're carrying knowledge about what a maestro truly is, and for that reason alone, Light decided to delay their execution for the time being. The moment the girls hear what Kido and Yanak have done, their expressions darken and their eyes lock onto the two criminals with pure killing intent. One by one, they start listing off the horrible things they'd like to do to make them pay for their crimes. Light figured they'd react like this, but he steps in and firmly tells them both of these monsters need to stay alive until every bit of intel about Maestro is wrung out of them. The girls grit their teeth, but agree to rein themselves in if that is what Light has decided. With that settled, Light turns to Gold and asks her to handle Elio's recovery, then tells Nemumu to follow him because he's going to give Jimra and Wardy the funeral they deserve. Just as he's about to walk off, Yanak suddenly drops to his knees, begging Light to wait. He pleads for mercy, insisting that none of this was really his fault, and it was all Kido's idea. But Kido snaps back, blaming Yanak for everything, saying he only went along with it because Yanak promised he could help him surpass his physical limits if he supplied enough test subjects. The two immediately start bickering, trying to shove the blame onto each other, until Light shuts them up and throws out a single question. Back when they were pretending to be deities, slaughtering and torturing innocent people like they were nothing, did either of them ever spare someone who begged for their life? Kito and Yanak go completely still because they both know they never spared even a shred of mercy for any of their victims, and that heavy silence tells Light everything he needs to know, so he calmly declares that they will be treated the exact same way, and there is nothing they can do to change that. Sometime later, Mia slowly wakes up at the inn in Dagas and finds Light sitting quietly by her bedside. She blinks and asks what happened, because the last thing she remembers was running for her life from Kito. Light explains that he and the others reached her just in time, right before the murderers were about to catch her, so they brought her back to safety so she could recover. He also lets her know that Ilio's wounds were treated and he pulled through. But when Mia nervously asks about Jimra and Wardy, Light doesn't have anything good to say. He gently hands her a lock of their hair and tells her that Jimra and Wardy both died from their injuries before he could reach them in time. Mia breaks down, crushed by the loss, so she still thanks Light from the bottom of her heart. Without him, she and her brother wouldn't be alive right now. Light stands up to leave and give her space to process everything, but he cannot shake a faint sense of guilt because moments like this make him question whether using his power purely for revenge is really the right path. The following day, Light makes his way over to the Adventurers Guild to file a report on the incident involving the killers and hand over all the important details. But he conveniently leaves out the part about him hauling Kito and Yanak away himself, so the guild still believes those two are somewhere out there. As far as the guild is concerned, those two are still at large. In recognition of the information he provided and for saving two potential victims, the guild grants Light and his team an official promotion to C rank. Afterward, Light sits down with Maya and Elio to talk about what's next for them. When he asks what they plan to do, Elio says they decided to retire from adventuring and return to their hometown. Light is a little surprised and tells them they could probably find another team to work with. Elio agrees but says it wouldn't feel right to move on so quickly after losing Jimra and Wardy. Besides, they want to take what remains of them home so their friends can be laid to rest properly. Light respects that but turns to Maya and asks what she plans to do about her magic studies. After all, that was her whole reason for becoming an adventurer in the first place, to save up enough to attend the academy. Maya says she's going to focus on teaching herself from now, and she plans to work hard so that next time she crosses paths with Light, she won't be a beginner anymore. Once Maya and Elio head out, Light decides it's time to return to the Abyss and check on things, and when he arrives, he's greeted by Maya and Ellie. He asks for an update, and May hands him a file summarizing everything they've pulled from interrogating Kito and Yanak. According to the information, descendants of a maestro are sent to level up faster than normal people. There's also an ancient legend claiming that if a maestro isn't stopped, they could eventually bring about the end of the world. This revelation makes Light curious about just how powerful a maestro has to be to hold the potential to wipe out the whole world single-handedly. But sadly, they do not have any more information on the subject. The intel they gathered mostly came from a conversation Kito had with the White Knight's captain a few years back. Even after Ellie tapped into her forbidden magic to extract the memories, most of them were broken or incomplete, leaving them with only fragments of the truth. Light then asks about the current state of Yanak and Kito, so Ellie opens a portal to show him, and the two of them look like they've been dragged through absolute misery. Since there's nothing left to extract from them, Light decides it's time to dispose of them for good. He summons a creature known as Dead Man's Banquet, and it consumes Kito and Yanak in a viciously gruesome manner. With that problem finally resolved, Light turns to Ellie and asks how her other preparations are coming along. She happily reports that everything is in place and he can begin his revenge on Sasha whenever he's ready. But before that though, she wants to capture the White Knights first, since every one of them is reportedly a sub-maestro, and she doesn't know what kind of abilities they might have. Their vice captain Michael is also Sasha's fiancé, so Ellie suggests he would make a perfect hostage, and Light is genuinely impressed by how thoroughly she planned everything. At the same time, in the Elf Nation, Sasha is having the time of her life retelling the story to Michael about how she betrayed Light and made him beg for his life with a pathetic look on his face. Michael clearly enjoys every detail, even saying he wishes he had witnessed it himself. He once went on a mission to wipe out a human village and he loved seeing the humans pleading for mercy. Both of them laugh and bond over how much pleasure they get from watching humans suffer, completely unaware that Light is preparing to return the favor for every pain Sasha ever inflicted on him. This was the end of episode 7. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.